Good morning, everyone. Imagine a world where your smartphone knows everything about you. Your food, your sleep score, your nutrition, your colleagues, and your friends. But also imagine a world where no one really sees you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we increasingly live in such a world. A world of increasing digital connection, but decreasing human connection. Today, an individual can speak to 1,000 followers, yet feel utterly alone. And unfortunately, more people than ever live and experience today loneliness. And when I think about those facts, I wonder if hospitality can be the cure. In its purest sense, hospitality means making someone feel seen. And instead of giving you now a speech about the future of new business models and innovation and KPIs, I decided to speak about what our industry does best: connecting people in a more and more disconnected world. So allow me to kick you off this morning with some statistics that show that we live increasingly in an environment of social starvation. The World Health Organization has published 4 months ago a report entitled "From Loneliness to Socialization." And that report shows that socialization is the precondition for health, for strength, and for resilience in individuals and societies. Unfortunately, today, 1 out of 6 individuals on this planet has experienced or is experiencing loneliness. And if you look at younger adults, we even see that this is 1 out of 5. Screen time today has replaced FaceTime. And don't get me wrong, I really appreciate that we can talk across distances to our friends and families. But what screen time does, it actually gives you the illusion of social connection. Because we think we are participating in someone else's lives via chat or via comment or via their reels. But this has really literally nothing to do with being in the presence of someone and being socially connected with another human being. And digitalization and AI, they will make, of course, our life in the future much more easily and efficient and effective. But what it does as well is that it has not only implications on our social life, but it also has implications on our cognitive abilities. In fact, there is proof that we are losing little by little the ability to use our mind as we used it in the past. We use it differently, but we are basically using less our minds when navigating our professional worlds and our private life. Well, I'm not here to give you some depressive news in the morning. The good news is that more and more individuals and young professionals don't want to do this anymore, and they don't want to be the opportunity cost of tech or someone else's profit. They actually want to be seen. And then I go into a lobby. And what do I see? I see people appreciating the architecture, greeting each other, giving each other a hug. I see a traveler exhaling after a long flight. And I see a barista looking for someone to deliver the order. In a world that we are today, we see that we have increasingly human disconnection. And there's one example recently. I went to Paris and I needed to give a business talk in the morning at a conference. And I went took my train to Paris, and that train actually the evening before had a lot of delays. I think it took me like 6-7 hours for a trip that was supposed to be 3 hours. And I went into a small Parisian boutique hotel, and it was past midnight. And what happened there is that the concierge greeted me and said like, "Good evening, Mr. Schmidt. We heard that you were coming late. Why don't you have a seat and have a glass of water or a cup of tea? And we know that our restaurant is closed, but we have prepared you some food for you if you still are hungry." That 30 seconds changed my entire experience of that evening. Not grand gesture, not technology, just care, authenticity, and a person speaking to me and anticipating my needs. And in that respect, think about what lobbies, restaurants, or cafes are today. These are the modern public squares of our past. These are spaces where people come together and connect with each other. My wife and I, we are both very busy, and we don't see each other very often. And what we have done and established among ourselves is we create no-phone date nights. And what we actually do is we go into our favorite restaurant that invites us to connect and talk to each other, where the lights invites us to sit in a corner, and where the servers know already that we are coming and we want to have a nice evening where we connect. And they sometimes see that we are talking and they stay away from us, just to give us the space to connect again. That's not design, that's care. And in a way, I feel hospitality is a place where we can create a space for human connection. To create a space to be in someone's presence. So in that regard, my colleague, Dr. Maggie Chen, calls this hospitality vibe. Hospitality can become the guardian of human connection. And if you think about what hospitality is, we at EHL, we spent in the last couple of years a great deal of time what hospitality is, what the competencies are, and what it is not. Hospitality is not service. Service is what we do. Hospitality is how we make people feel. Service is delivered. Hospitality is experienced. And service meets expectations. Hospitality surpasses them. The last time when I was here in Dubai at the World Government Summit, I flew back and I met one of our alumnus. Let's call her Maria. And Maria actually runs the night shift at a resort in Bali. And she told me a story at the airport and said, like, look, recently I had a couple coming in when I ran the night shift. And that couple really came at 2 a.m. to my front desk, and they looked really exhausted and beaten up, and the woman was crying. So what did Maria do? She went away from the front desk and went towards the couple and said, like, welcome, may I take care of you? Why don't we have a seat? And then she asked them, may I ask what happened? And Maria really listened what happened. So the couple actually was on the first night of their honeymoon. They flew to Bali but missed the connection, that's why they are so late, and they didn't have the luggage with them. That's why the woman was all in tears. And what Maria did that night, she organized with room service dry cleaning, made sure that the couple had clothes the next day to wear and get their daily tasks. She also made sure that the two had some swimwear that they can enjoy the property. And then she wrote a little note that morning where it says like, wishing you a joyful start in your honeymoon. Thank you for choosing our property. And Maria told me that the GM afterwards told her a very nice story about the feedback, because that couple wrote a letter. And in this letter, basically, they said, tell Maria that she gave us back our first night as a married couple. That's not service, that's hospitality. Hospitality, you see a need and you bypass that need. Because there's statistical proof and research proof that a service is very transactional. We pay for service and we expect that it's delivered. So service doesn't create loyalty. 40% of satisfied customers with a service, they actually don't become loyal. But what hospitality does is that it takes this moment of neutrality of service and it creates an emotion and a memory towards it. And that is what creates loyalty. So in a world that is increasingly fast, hospitality slows us down and we realize life around us. So why do I tell you this? Because the World Economic Forum every year publishes the Future of Jobs report, in which they show us what are the future skills and competencies across industries that we need to develop. And what it says is that in a currently more and more digitalized world, we all see that certain competencies and skills will be replaced by digitalization. And while tech skills are becoming increasingly important, such as computational thinking and digital tech savviness, so do human ones. Today, analytical thinking, creativity, and resilience are among the top competencies and skills across industries. In the future, by the end of the decade, you add emotional intelligence, cultural agility, flexibility, problem-solving skills. And ladies and gentlemen, if we look at those skills, these are all hospitality skills that we teach for years and decades in our hotels, into our restaurants. In our industry, there's no pause button. If something goes wrong, we need to stay calm, we need to find solution, we have the customer in mind, and we need to make sure that things work. So let me get this straight. Our competences and skills that we have in hospitality in our DNA become, by the end of the decade, one of the most researched competences and skills across industries. And we see already that other industries pick that up. In our school, luxury retail firms, banking, service, healthcare, they're all recruiting our talent. And ladies and gentlemen, that's the wake-up call for hospitality. If we are sitting on the most talented workforce in our industry for the future, we have an obligation to make sure that the most talented individuals stay in our industries and make sure that they have place to develop, grow, and fulfill themselves. We cannot let just others take it away. That's a real competition going on out there. And why do I tell you this at FHS? Well, because if we are honest, our industry treats employees rather as costs than as capital. In our industry, the value of human capital, in particular of frontline employees, is rather neglected. And the industry structure in our industries with investors, owners, operators, brands, it doesn't help us to value human capital because they are interested on return on their investment, return on assets, not return on human capital. And training expenditures are considered as an expense. The biggest KPIs we care about in our management contracts, gross operating profit and revenues per available room. But then I speak to operators, and what do they tell me? We cannot find people. But ladies and gentlemen, I don't think it's about finding people, I think it's about retaining them. Turnover, we have one of the worst turnover statistics across industries in our industry. In some areas, we have a turnover rate of 60 to 70% in certain market regions. And when an employee leaves, the employee just doesn't leave their jobs. They leave social connections, they leave culture, they leave know-how with their teams and how to work. And it takes an average 5 to 7 months of that individual salary to replace that employee. And imagine if we would just spend a little bit of that money in developing our talent in the industry. And one of the things that we do at DHL, we change the mindset from human capital, from considering an employee as a worker, to change it towards human capital and consider him as talent. And we see this at DHL every day. Young individuals coming to our school, they are uncertain, shy, but they leave as multilinguistic, confident problem solvers into our industry. And I asked one of our alumnus that works in a retail luxury boutique in Milano, Italy, what has hospitality told you? And he told me, hospitality has taught me empathy. And empathy sells. And this is, I think, where our next big thing lies in hospitality. It's about the combination between human skills and technology. Because technology won't solve the issue. A GM recently told me, hey, I installed AI as a concierge in our front desk. Result, super efficient. Clients loved it in the customer satisfaction, the speed, the rapidity, the ease of access. But overall, the guest satisfaction, they rated the property as much colder and less human. And it's proven that every time you invest into a human touch point, you need to make sure that you elevate this human touch point, because digitalization will reduce to human touch points in the future, but the fewer ones that remains, you need to elevate. And here is where I think we can get back a little bit of our market share from the disruptors that came into our industries. When you talk about short-term apartment stays, rentals, apartment rentals, and maybe the OTAs. What they sell is actually rooms into the market. But I think we need to stop selling heads in beds, and we need to start selling hearts in lobbies. Because if we start selling hearts in lobbies, we start doing the right thing. I think we all need to become asset light, but human capital rich. What we call in business schools humanocratic. We need to become much more humanistic, where the employee is the center of the intention of what we do. Because that, I told you before, is the superpower. I told you also that other industries look for our graduates. But they not only look for our graduates, they want to borrow our concept, replicate them, replicate that warmth, and make sure they create customer loyalty, performance afterwards. So we need to start doing the same in our industry. So if we get not only heads in lobbies, but heads in beds, but hearts in lobbies, I think then we do the right thing. I also believe that if we do this, we not only create homes away for home for our customers, we create homes away for home for our employees. Because if an employee feels home, he has the trust, the willingness, and the confidence to go the extra mile and go out of our service operating procedures and do a hospitality experience. So I didn't want to give you a KPI, but here's a KPI for you in the future. Don't think about the pipeline of properties you have. Tell me how much employees would like to work for you. And in that regard, let's go back to the story that I told you in the beginning. Let's go back to the lobby that you can be in. Just pay attention next time when you see someone and you shake the hand and you feel that person in front of you. Let's make sure when you are in a check-in that you think about, am I experiencing here a transaction, or am I experiencing a hospitality process? Because, ladies and gentlemen, if we start seeing hospitality not only as an industry, we need to start thinking about it as an antidote to loneliness. Because if we start doing this, we start protecting our industry, we start investing in it, we make sure that we are seen, and we make sure that our people are seen. And when we do that, ladies and gentlemen, then I don't think that the next generation will join hospitality, they will start living it. Thank you very much.